So a healing is an undoing of fear, because every single thing that it says we go through is some form of fear. So healing is the undoing of fear. When I undo my fear, then the thing that seems to be causing my fear will disappear. Actually, I decided to be afraid first, then I came up with all the stuff. That's the way it really works. I decide how I'm going to feel, then I set up the situations and circumstances that give me that feeling. And people say, well, why would I do that? Well, if you don't love yourself, you're certainly not going to set up a vacation in Hawaii. If I think I'm no good, I'm certainly not going to set up a relationship that's loving and totally fulfilling to me. If I think I'm sinful and guilty, I'm certainly not going to set up a prosperous life for me, because I don't deserve to have one. So why do people set up situations that cause them pain? It's coming from a lack of belief in their innocence and that they're loved and that they're okay. And you know that's not unusual, because most of the people you may know around you may somehow feel that something needs to be different in their life in order for them to be happy. So what I'm saying is very common. So many people who don't think they deserve to be happy would certainly not create a situation where they're always feeling good. So you are entitled to miracles. I'm sorry. You are entitled to states of completion and abundance. You are entitled to it because of who you are and what you were created by. That's what I'm trying to get. I'm trying to get clear that I'm so valuable that it should be ordinary for my life to be perceived in a joyful, happy way. Because I am valuable, and you are valuable.
Thank you.
And even if you forget it, please surround yourself with somebody that would remind you, instead of somebody who, when you're feeling really, really bad about something, they'll point out the other things you shouldn't be feeling bad about.
That's right.
You know, oh, you're feeling bad about that, but don't forget what you did last week now. You know what I'm saying? Don't overlook that. I used to keep a diary so I can look back on what I did wrong 20 years ago. You know, I still do. It's interesting. It's very interesting. Journaling is a powerful way to heal. So who would choose suffering unless they thought it brought them something of value? So they must think suffering is a small price to pay for something of greater value. So why am I going through this situation? Because I think it's going to give me something of even greater value than the suffering that I think I'm going through, or the unhappiness that I think I'm going through. In other words, yes, I'm suffering, but there's going to be some greater, bigger reward that's going to come to me. Like we're always told a lot of times in traditional spirituality, you're going to suffer on earth, and then when you get through with all this suffering, then at the end, you're going to be finally see us for some greater reason. I always tell people, if you choose to make decisions that bring pain into your life, then it is a good thing to look at the suffering that you're going through as a lesson that God would have you learn after you made the decision to suffer or hurt yourself, right? But don't tell yourself that the suffering was necessary in order for you to get that lesson and for you to have that reward. Don't fall for that one. No pain, no gain is requesting the universe to give you a lot of pain before you actually gain. So if you're one of those people that say no pain, no gain, you shouldn't be complaining when things are tough, because that's exactly the way you said you needed to have it in order for you to benefit. Sometimes we set up really challenging situations just to prove to ourselves how astute we are at solving problems. If we think we're really like this really person that's got it together, sometimes we'll set up situations, handle it on our own, just to prove to ourselves that we can handle it on our own. So much so that we'll tell people, I can handle it on my own. And then everybody lets you. Then you feel resentment and have to go to therapy for forgiveness, right? But I told everybody to back off. I'm an adult. I can handle it on my own. So the Course says that any kind of sickness, which it defines as a lack of peace or conflict, it says is an election. It's a decision. So if I want to heal right now, I have to tell myself, whether I believe it or not, that I am not a victim of this situation that I'm in. I am not a victim of this situation. I am not a victim of this situation. I am not a victim of this person. I am not a victim of this person. I am not a victim of this person. I am not a victim of this situation. I am not a victim of this situation. I am not a victim of this situation. Whatever the situation is that you pointed out at the beginning of the class, internally tell yourself, I am not a victim of this situation, even if it looks like you are, even if it feels like you are. Tell yourself, I am not a victim of this situation. Because if that's the truth, it doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. The truth doesn't matter. The truth, what's so cool about the truth is true whether you believe it or not. Something that's not true is only true if you believe it. Something that's true will be true whether you believe it or not. What's true doesn't need your agreement and my agreement in order for it to be true. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Just because you decide something is true doesn't make it true. It makes it true in your perception. It makes it true in the way you see things, but it doesn't necessarily make it true. You can see me as somebody that doesn't like you. That's not necessarily true, but you will see it that way, and you will treat me like I don't like you, because you will judge me, and I will judge you, and I'll react to my judgments as if they're correct. The truth is, I could love you a whole lot, and you just don't know it. So the truth has nothing to do with belief. Belief is an ego function. Belief is the function of a mind that doesn't know the truth. And the mind that doesn't know the truth uses belief to take it to the truth. But when you are awake, you know you don't believe. Belief is a function of a mind that doesn't know the truth. Don't you see that?
Yeah.
Because belief makes you think that your perception is reality. And think how many times in your life somebody's been completely wrong about what they have said or thought about you, but they believed it. And in their perception, no matter what you did, that's the way you were. Perception is not reality. Perception is nothing but something you've learned that you're now seeing, but it's not necessarily the truth. And so the Course in Miracles says, well, how can I tell if it's the truth? Well, he says, well, one of the ways you can tell if it's the truth is by how you feel. If you're really getting in touch with something that's truly the truth and the truth for you, it should make you feel lighter, for one thing. It should give you more clarity, for one thing. So here's the first 3 steps to healing that situation that you think you may be going through right now. First, realize that when you're no longer seeing the value in going through the things that you're going through right now, then a healing will be accomplished. Number 2, the only reason why you're putting up with it is because you think it's giving you a payoff that's greater than the suffering that you're going through. Why am I staying broke? I think it gives me some payoff. Suppose I learned that, rich people can't get into heaven. Then if I really want to go to a higher level, I'll try to keep myself as broke as possible. Or if I'm not loving myself enough to let prosperity into my life, then I'll come up with a system that says the less prosperity that you have, the more spiritual you are, to make it okay the way I am now. So any thoughts about what I've said so far? Any questions before I go further in this easy, light class that I'm doing? That I'm priding myself in the lightness of it,
Hard to talk about the payoffs.
It's hard to talk about the payoffs. It's hard to believe that we think some of the things we go through are giving us a payoff that we'd rather have than not having the suffering. I was reading a book the other day where a person was talking about they were going to get a divorce from their mate because the relationship was horrible and it wasn't working out. And the other person said to them, well, when did you realize that the relationship wasn't going to work? 3 months before you got married or 3 months after? The person said, well, actually, I realized it really wasn't going to work at the very beginning, but by that time, I had already hired the caterers and sent out the invitations. The person said back to them, that was 10 years ago, so you think that 10 years of suffering equals $1,000 for invitations or whatever, catering? Yes, we do stuff like that. Can absolutely realize, that happened to me when I got married. It's like, you can very much love a person and know that your personalities aren't really compatible. And then what happens when 2 incompatible people get together is they sometimes convince each other that they're not okay. Because they are not a good match for each other, and before they realize it, the judgments and criticisms will make them think that there's something wrong with them when actually they're the perfect match for somebody else. You don't have to change yourself. One of the surefire ways that somebody doesn't love you is they're telling you all the things you need to change in you in order for them to love you. Well, if you already love me, what do I need to change? If you already love me, what do I need to change for? You're trying to change so that you can love me? Then that means you don't. So why should I change myself to get a love that's not even there yet? But I've done it. But everything had been planned. Everything had been planned out. So